if I could only have 5 sales reports inside of Monday.com sales CRM, these are the 5 I would have, and this is exactly how to set them up. By the way, if you'd like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, check out the link in the description below. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm inside of my example Monday.com system. Now, today I have 5 reports that I want to set up across both a leads area and a deals area. And I think these are like the 5 most crucial reports that you could possibly need. Obviously, there are loads more, but this is just the fundamentals. So what we're going to do is firstly, I'll create a new board. This is going to be our leads board, okay? So privacy options, I'm going to leave as main. Obviously, you can select private or shareable. It's entirely up to you. And then I'm just going to say that we are managing leads on this board here today. So now I'm not going to go through the setup. I'm not going to bore you with that. What I'm going to firstly do is just walk you through my first report that I would want to set up and just how to set it up. So what I would want is the number of leads created on a monthly basis. So what I would do in this particular instance is I would use a date column. When you create a new leads board or any board, it automatically populates a date column. So you can use that. And what I would do is I would change this to be called date created, okay? I would then press the 3-dotted button and I would restrict the column editing. And then what I would do is go to automate in the top right hand corner and go to manage and then press create automation. And then I just want to say when an item is created, then set date created to today. So when item is created, set date created, the date column we just changed to today. So that means that every single time a new lead is created, example lead, it will then automatically set the date that it's created to today, as you can see, which will then allow us to track the number of leads per month. So if we then go ahead and press the plus button and we'll create a new dashboard and we'll call this our sales dashboard, okay? Again, privacy options are entirely up to you, and then just hit create dashboard. It's going to ask us which boards we want to pull in data from. So because we haven't got a deals board yet, just select leads and then we're going to go ahead and press done. And then on the sales dashboard, what I would do is press add widget and I would go to chart, and then this would literally be called leads per month. Well, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what I'm going to call it. And then 3-dotted button settings, and then our x-axis is going to be, so the x-axis being the bottom axis, is going to be the date created, and then our y-axis is literally just going to be count of items. So now it's going to show me that in November 6 leads were created. If I go to here and I change this date created to, let's say, the 29th of October and go back to our sales dashboard, I can see that there was 1 lead created in October and 5 created in November. I think being able to see the number of leads that you generate on a monthly basis is really, really important. So the next thing that I'm going to want to look at is revenue per month. So plus button, we need a new board. This is going to be our deals board. So privacy options, again, entirely up to you. And then in this instance, we're going to be managing deals, and then I'll just hit create board. So we need a couple of things to factor in generating revenue. So what defines revenue? Okay. So first and foremost, we need a numbers column. So this numbers column is obviously going to be the revenue amount. And this is the amount of the deal value, should we say. You can then, so that's just a numbers column I've added. 3-dotted button settings. We can customize this to select our currency. So in this instance, let's operate in the dollar. And then we can also select our decimal places, which is quite cool. So we can select 2 decimal places here. And then what I would typically do is just hide the column summary. What we also then need is the status options. So let's say we've got new, active, we would then have 1 deals, okay? So we would have 1, and then the red is going to be lost, and then we would probably also have, like, the default label should always really be new, and then we can change this to, let's say, active, okay? So this is our very basic deal process. What we then want to make sure we have is the groupings match our status options. So we've got new deals, we then have active deals, we then have 1 deals, and we would also have lost deals as well. There we go. So those are our different stages, right? This is important, the groupings especially for our dashboard. So just bear with me on this. So we've got grey, active can be in the yellow color. I think that's the yellow color. Yeah, that looks similar enough. And then green, 1, lost is red. Okay. So what I would then do is I would say when the status changes to 1, move item to group 1 deals. I would do this for all of the different status options, but that isn't necessary to be able to track revenue per month. Okay, so let me just explain this to you. Automate, manage, create automation. When status changes to, and then one in this instance, I would move item to group being one. So it's important that we use the groups and the status columns in conjunction with one another. Okay, so now if I assign a value for item 3 of, let's say the deal is 500,000, and change the status to 1, that's then going to move that item to the group 1 automatically with the deal value. This is important because if we wanted to track revenue per month, if we go to our sales dashboard, we need to create a new widget. This is going to be a chart again, and this is going to be revenue per month. And then we would go to 3 dotted button settings, and then our x-axis is going to be 1 by 1. Actually, this is a very good point. I've completely forgotten about this. Oh dear. If we go back to our deals board, we'll need another date column. Okay. So in this case, we would have a date created, which is exactly the same as what we did on the leads board, but we would also have another date column, and this date column is going to be date closed, and this is the day in which the status is changed to either won or lost. So same principle applies, restrict column editing on both of these. When an item is created, set date created to today. I'm not going to recreate that, but what I would do is just go to automate, click into when status changes to 1, move item to 1 deals, and add another step, and then just also set the date closed to today. Okay, so that's really important. I'm not impressed with myself that I forgot that. So this is a great foggy morning, like most mornings. So if I'll manually enter this in, just to give you an example. Let's say that's the 13th. And then also if I assign a value of 45, that's 450. And then change the status of this deal to 1, that's also going to move that particular item to the group 1, but also automatically set the date closed to today. So if I then head over to my sales dashboard and do what I was meant to do initially, go to settings, x-axis would be the date in which it was, I'm forgetting everything today. We need to also add the deals board to our sales dashboard. So go to one connected board, top left-hand corner, and we also need to just select deals. What I would strongly recommend you do is untick add newly selected boards to all existing widgets. Because if you set up a load of widgets for your leads board and your deals board isn't present, then it essentially Monday.com assumes that you want to also report in the same way on that board as well. So it really makes a mess of things. So just hit done. This should then load that new board, or at least give us access to the data. And then finally, settings, go to boards down the bottom here, unselect leads, select deals, go to x-axis. Our x-axis is going to be date closed. Our y-axis is going to be 1 by 1 deal value. But the important thing to note here is we only want the 1 deals. So we would, out of all of the groups, the only group we want is 1 deal. So we unselect lost, active, and new. This will now show us the revenue per month because they are in the 1 group, which is defined by the 1 status. And when the status changes to 1, it also sets the date closed to today. So you can see how that then works, which is really, really important. Now, the next thing that I would want to look at, which I think is a really, really important metric, is the average time to close a deal, because this allows you to forecast, and there's another forecasting function that we'll come onto in this video as well, but it will allow us to forecast what our income is going to be in the future. So if we go to our deals board, you can see here we've got our date created and our date closed. Okay, these are 2 different columns that we've created. So this is on the deals board. So if I just go to automate, and let's just imagine I create, or I'm not going to imagine, I'm going to do it, create when an item is created, set date created to today. So this is exactly what we did on the lead side of things as well. So now we've got when item is created, set date created to today. And then when status changes to 1, move item to group 1 and set date closed to today. What I want to do is I want to work out the time between the date created and the date closed. So what I would do is press plus button, formula column. And then what I would do is I would ask the AI assistant to give me the difference in days between, if I can spell correctly, date created and date closed, and then hit enter. Okay, so this is it should look exactly like this. So days and then open bracket, date closed, comma, date created, close bracket. So then I'll just press set formula, and then I would change the formula name to like TTC to time to close or something like that. And then I would hide the column summary, and I would restrict the column editing to make sure no one can make changes to this. And you will see here that this is giving a value of 8. This is the difference in days between the 5th of November and the 13th of November. If I change this to, let's say, the 1st of October to the 5th of November, you can see that that is 35. What I want to be able to do is I want to report on the average amount of time it takes to close a one deal across all of the one deals we've ever had. So what I would do is I'd go to my sales dashboard, go to add widget, and then in this instance, all you really need is a numbers column. And then I would call this average time to close. 3 dotted button, go to settings. And then what we want in this instance is we want to go one by one. And then we want to go TTC, so that's the formula column we created, and then customize, and then you can select the unit if you want to, so you can just put days, it's entirely up to you, but it's really important that we also select the average, and then I would go manual decimal places, and I'll probably only have, I mean, you don't necessarily need any, you could have one if you're feeling fancy, but the next thing that was really important is we only then have the group, actually on the boards, by the way, very slow today, make sure you unselect leads, so it's just for deals, and then on the groups, we just want to have the one deals, okay? So this will give us the average time to close a one deal. So I can see now, on average, it takes 21.5 days from a new deal coming in to then a new deal being won or a deal being won. Now you can take this a step further if you wanted to, because you can have it set up in a way that the day created from the lead, when a lead is converted or qualified, it then pushes over to the deal, but slightly more complicated. Needless to say, the average time to close is really, really important. Okay. So then the next thing that I want to look at is forecasted pipeline value. So what is our forecasted value? So we have our different status options here. We've got new, active, won, or lost. Now, everything before won and lost is hypothetically forecasted, in the sense that you don't know that it's going to convert or not. So, but we can assign probabilities to conversion based on the different stages of the pipeline. So what I mean by that is we would add a formula column, and then we would say, and we'll just start with the basics. We'd say when status equals new, give me 10% of deal value, and then set formula. So this we're going to build this out, okay? But we'll press insert, set formula. Let's make sure that this works. So if I put in a deal value of 10,000, 10% of that would be 1,000. I can then go ahead and put in the currency, and then I would call this forecasted value. Okay. And then I would also have 3 dotted button, just hide the column summary as well. So now I have a forecasted value based on the status. So this is a $10,000 deal, but the status is new. So the probability of it converting is 10%. What I can then do is say where the status is equal to active. So I can add this, please add where status is equal to active, give me active, hang on, active, give me 30% of deal value. Hit enter. So this is going to add to hopefully our existing formula, which it has done. We can then go ahead and press set formula. So now if I then add a deal value of 20,000 here, and currently the status is new. If I then change the status to active, it should give me 30% of that, which is 6,000. So now we're forecasting the value based on the status of the deal. As the deal progresses through the different stages of the sales pipeline, we are getting a forecasted value. Now you can get very mathematical with this and very accurate. So you know, based on your drop-offs of all of your prior deals, that the probability of conversion based on that stage of the sales pipeline is X percentage, and you can really extrapolate that and get very granular. And the granularity is important because it then allows us to report within our sales dashboard on our forecasted value. Quite often people ask, oh, what's our deal value? What's the pipeline looking like? That's not an accurate representation of what your actual potential revenue is going to be, because you could have loads of deals in the new deal value or loads of deals in follow-up status, which essentially means they've gone cold, but you're counting that value as just the value of the entire deal, not the forecasted value. So I would go to my sales dashboard, go to add widget, numbers column again, and then I would call this forecasted pipeline value. And then I'll go to 3 dotted button settings, just go to boards, unselect the leads board. So we just want deals. And then the groups we want, really, it doesn't actually matter because of the way we set it up, but I would just have one, I would just untick one and lost deals. Then go to customize numbers column one by one, and then select forecasted value. And then we just want to add the unit and probably add 2 decimal places there. So now I can see that our forecasted pipeline value, not the total value of all of the deals in the pipeline, but our forecasted value is $7,000, which gives me a way more accurate representation of where we are as a business. I think it's a way better way of doing things. Yeah. Of course, you're also going to have a lot more stages to your deal pipeline. So this is just a basic example, but it's really easy to add. So you saw all I needed to do is write in, please add, and then just give them the more defined parameters. The complex part is tracking the probability of conversion based on the different stages of the process, but I'll leave that up to you. Or we could help you with that. If you would like us to help you set up monday.com for your business, check out the link in the description below. And then my final report is revenue by source. This is overlooked a lot of the time, especially if you're a business that operates with multiple different lead sources or means of generating business, so outbound, inbound, ads, referrals, affiliate networks. So it's really important to be able to see where your revenue is coming from, not your leads, not the number of deals, but the actual revenue that you're generating as a business. So what I would do in this case is I would just have a status column, and this is going to be our source. That's spelled correctly, yeah. For a weird moment, I was trying to spell it like pasta sauce type thing. God, very slow day today. So let me just put in some arbitrary options. Facebook ads. We could have Google search or Google SEO. YouTube ads. We could have YouTube organic. You could have outbound. Could have inbound, I don't know, making it up as I go along, as you can see, but we have a few different source options here that we're then able to track in association with our deals. I don't know why this isn't letting me, oh, there we go. Oh, Monday's glitching out, as per usual. I just hit refresh. I'm trying to delete those options and it doesn't seem to be letting me for whatever reason. No, it's not at all. Oh, well, we'll leave it. So what we'll do is we'll then assign some values to the won deals. Obviously, all of our deals would have sources, you would like to think anyway, but all we care about is the won deals and the source of those won deals, and ultimately the value of the won deals by source, because that's all it really boils down to. I think people obsess too much about, we're generating loads of leads from this particular deal source, or this lead source, for example, but actually it's quite often the one that you pay least attention to is doing the most work, strangely enough. So on our sales dashboard, I would just want to have a widget, and this widget would be a chart, and we could probably break this down by month if we wanted to as well. So we could just do total. I'm inclined to just do revenue. Well, let's do both. We go revenue by source, and then we go 3 dotted button settings, and then our x-axis is, or actually just go to boards first, unselect leads. So our x-axis is going to be the source, and then our y-axis is going to be one by one, and it's going to be deal value. And then the important thing here is we only have our won deals, okay? So that's a really important factor. Again, this is why we set up the groupings. So now I can see, and it's actually quite close between inbound and Google SEO, our revenue by our different lead sources. Okay, so if I then go to our deals and let's say I add pathetic $10,000 deal here and change the status of this to won, we can then see on our sales dashboard, it will update in a moment. This is also another revenue by a source. We might have had loads of inquiries from YouTube organic, but none of them have converted in the same way that Google SEO or the inbound efforts have. So I think this is really important. What you could also do if you wanted to is you can make this by month. So I'm not going to add a report. I'm just going to change this. So if you wanted to do revenue by source per month, you could go settings, and then you would need to change your x-axis to date closed, and then you need to change your chart type to a stacked bar. You then need to stack it by your source. You can even expand it if you want to, and then your y-axis would remain the same. So now we can see here we've got revenue by source, and then if we go to deals, that should YouTube organic, yeah, that should also be populating on here. There it is, it's shown up now. So this is November. We've had 500,000 from Google SEO, 450 from inbound, and we've had 10,000 from YouTube organic. Now if I then go to our deals board here and I just change the date of this to, let's say, December the 11th, date closed, go to our sales dashboard, you can see how that then looks, in the sense that you've got November revenue, and then it's broken down here, and then you've got December. If you don't want to expand the stack, so go to stack and unselect expanded stack mode, then it will all show as one, so you can see how that would then look. So if I then change this back to November, just to give you a better idea, I go to that 13th, then go to our sales dashboard, you can see how that then looks. It's literally stacked. But needless to say, I think I would probably just keep it simple, in the sense that I would just want to see revenue by source. I don't really care about revenue by source per month, especially if we're keeping it simple, you know. So revenue by source, and then it would be y-axis, exactly that. So I can see what source is performing and what's not. Anyway, those are my 5 key reports that I think are really necessary. How many leads are we generating? What's our revenue per month? What's our forecasted pipeline value, not just our pipeline value? What's the average time to close a deal, and which source is generating us the most amount of money? Hopefully this has given you an insight into how to set up some basic reporting inside of Monday.com, and how kind of you need to configure the boards and the formulas and things like that. If you would like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, we'd love to help. Check out the link in the description below. You can book a call with me. We can have a chat, and then we can go from there. Either way, thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video, and I will hopefully be speaking with you soon, or catch you in the next video. Thank you, and goodbye.